Friday, and we are end of another week getting into the holidays. And so this is the last video for a while, going into Christmas season. So I want to end it on I end everything on a happy note because I just tell people over and over again, we are designed to heal, and EMDR is a very new phenomenon in the last 10 or 15 years that allows people to recalibrate, reinterpret, understand, recalibrate their sense of themselves and their beliefs about what they came to understand about themselves during moments of trauma in younger years when their brain or the act of the trauma itself prevented the brain from creating viable, and I would have to say accurate, understanding of what happened. Because beliefs are based on emotions. Beliefs are not based on actions and events. They are not. Beliefs come from emotions, and the emotions that we often feel during these moments of trauma, whether minor or severe, doesn't matter. Whether we're at fault or not at fault doesn't matter. Whether they are physical or sexual, it kind of doesn't matter. These are profound, damaging events that cause us to believe that we didn't do enough. I chickened out. I didn't defend myself. I didn't ask for help. I didn't tell anybody. I liked it. A big one. This is a big one. Or I told my mother and she didn't believe me. That's a very, very big one and a very common one. And I want to talk about that today because one of the things that we hear a lot is when there's an event of sexual abuse or some sort of physical physical abuse. Mothers always have a maternal instinct to protect their children, and when a mother comes across a situation where she is responsible um, for not um, not being present, not being there, not being capable or even aware of a need to protect her child, there is a great, deep, deep strain on that sense of maternal instinct. And that burns. And so there is a tendency for a lot of mothers to say, this can't be possible because if it's true, I'm a terrible mother. And that goes to the heart of this maternal instinct, being seen as a failure. And then, on the other hand, there are a lot of times when, we expect mothers to be there and present and perfect and keeping the house in order and, keeping everybody happy and healthy. And that's just not life, right? And I saw a great quote the other day, which was something like, mothers that are deeply wounded in their youth do not raise their children, they raise their wounds, right? And they protect their wounds and they nurture their wounds. And I think that is quite true. That was quite true in my family too. I found it hard to believe that my mom would have had PTSD, in the same way that my dad did, but in her own way, I believe now she very likely did. As I mentioned, I'm the youngest of 10, and so my parents were a generation older, right? My parents were 20 years older than all of the other parents of my classmates because I was, born, 18 years after my oldest sister. And so my parents were in World War II. They both turned 18 in 1942 and they had to go to war. And they both ended up in Asia and they were there for 5 years. And my mother fought in the war and she also helped POWs in Singapore from 1945 to 1947 to help them get rehabilitated. And all I got from her was a couple of sentences. One of the sentences I got from her was, you have no idea how dealing with the POWs after the war was probably more painful than anything I saw during the war, because so many of the POWs who came from all over Asia to be processed back to the West, to Australia, America, UK, so forth, Europe, were being processed out of Singapore, hundreds of thousands of them. And they were psychologically destroyed like children, right? And so, that 2 years of that, right, will do a number on you, right? On top of, 3 years of war. And so Do I want to say that my mom was nursing her wounds while she was raising 10 kids? The answer is probably yes. Did she have all the tools she needed to raise 10 kids? Answer no. Um, did she do the best she could? Answer no. We don't excuse behavior, we forgive behavior, right? Um, and so, in working with quite a lot of men recently in the last, say 6 months on EMDR, we see men who, even in the so-called light of day, as they process, traumatic memories, including traumatic memories of their mothers, can come around to developing a sense of compassion and pity for their mother, while I think very accurately depicting the mental anguish, the mental illness, the mental debilitating past events that this mother brought into her children, right? And so, especially immigrants, right? My mom's an immigrant. My mom was born during the Civil War in Ireland, right? And her father was very likely an alcoholic. I think she had one or two brothers that were alcoholic. There was probably a lot of trauma in their life. Her father died when she was 1 year old, so she was raised by brothers and a mother on a farm, right, in rural Ireland. And then the Depression happened, and then the war happened. So this was not a very fun time for these people. And that was only the first third of her life. So then she had to go to the next third of her life, which was Vietnam and the Korean War and raising kids and inflation and Nixon and all that, right? And so I think that it becomes all the more important. I tell people a lot when we do EMDR that part of creating boundaries and part of letting our agency, letting our male masculine agency, healthy agency and self-confidence emerge, and not being pushed over and not being, belittled, especially by mothers. A very important part of that evolution toward agency and boundaries and confidence and trusting intuition and self-trust has got to come in altering the arrangement we have with parents, especially mother, from mother to friend. This is very important for as people get older, because they realize that that person is deeply flawed. And yes, the mother element is there, but I think as adults we have to take some responsibility to question, to have adult conversations with mothers, especially about what happened to them, right? What wounds are they nursing, right? Um, because they were doing a lot of nursing their wounds and not a lot of raising their children. And I think with Gen Z and some other millennials, there's a big question mark of why the hell didn't you take away my cell phone? What in the hell were you thinking? Why did you not think that I should be allowed to be alone, 24/7 with any piece of information or data or pornographic images or gory images at any time? And I heard 5 or 7 years ago, I heard a lot of mothers saying, I can't take his phone away. He'll throw a temper tantrum. Well, that's like with a drug addict. You say, you know what? Go in your room, throw a temper tantrum, and when you're finished, you can come down, but you're not getting your phone. You know, this is what has to happen a lot more now. And we're seeing this phenomenon happening where Australia banned cell phones for people under 16, where 7 states in America in the last like 2 years, 7 states have banned cell phones in their school systems. And I think that's going to go up to 40 or 45 states very quickly, because this is going to be a state level thing. It can't be a federal thing. And I think more and more parents are just going to be looking around and reading about all the damage that's been done to Gen Z and younger millennials and say, no, this is not going to happen in my home with my kids. And so this needs to be a lot more of a profound conversation in all schools, all international schools, all over the world. And we need to find a way to help people to deal with this damage. And a lot of these mothers, I think some of them aren't opposed to being called, helicopter parents, But as you know, a lot of people agreed with me in the last 5 days in comments that this helicopter parenting thing was a bit of there's a lot of question marks about that. I think that was very much hyped because I think there was not a lot of helicopter parenting. There was a lot of absent parenting who told their kids, go in your room, play with your cell phone at dinner. We don't need to talk. We don't have to have family meetings. We don't have to have family gatherings. Everybody can bring their cell phone to dinner without having a sense of discipline and forced discussion about what's going on, how's life, what's happening. I think this just stopped happening in the last like 8 or 9 years, and society's paying a big price for this. And I think COVID really accelerated that phenomenon of parents who basically were the opposite of helicopter parents. They were absent parents who just let their cell phone raise their kids. And so there's a lot of discussion that has to happen here in schools and at homes about where we are going to go with this Frankenstein creature called the cell phone that has done a lot of damage to millions of people who are now in their late teens, early 20s, all the way up to their early 30s. And so that's it for this week. So moms, got to be on the hook here. And mom has been tending to her wounds. Mom has been nursing her wounds as well. We need to appreciate that, and we need to treat our moms just as much as friends as we do as mothers. That's really important, to have a frank and honest discussion about their trauma as well. And in that way, we are going to go a long way toward healing. And so once again, we are designed to heal no matter how far down we've gone. Spectacular things happen, and EMDR can help us to unravel these negative, traumatic emotions that are attached to belief systems that occurred in younger life. So there we go. Happy holidays, everybody, and we'll see you in the new year.